My wife slid an envelope across the dinner table and said, "Don't make a scene." That was it. No lead-up. No softness. I was mid-bite, steak knife still in my hand, and she just pushed it across the white tablecloth like she was passing the salt. I set the knife down slowly. The envelope was thick. Tabbed. Color-coded at the edges the way she color-coded everything. I looked up at her. She had on the blue dress, the one from the night I proposed. I thought that was romantic. I actually thought that. "What is this?" I said. She folded her hands on the table. "Read it." "Danica. Adrian." She said my name back at me like a period at the end of a sentence. The server appeared, young guy, nervous smile, completely unaware. "Can I interest you two in dessert tonight?" Danica looked up at him. "No thank you, we're finished." Not "we're fine. We're finished." The server nodded and disappeared. I opened the envelope. First page, my name in bold. Second page, her attorney's letterhead. Third page, I flipped to the last one, already signed. Dated yesterday. She had walked into a courthouse the day before our celebration dinner and signed her name. I looked up, and across the restaurant, a woman I did not recognize raised her wineglass in our direction and smiled. And I had no idea yet that she was the one who built the whole thing. I need to stop right here and tell you who I am, not who I became, who I was before that envelope. My name is Adrian Park, 36 years old. IT compliance manager at a regional bank in Raleigh, North Carolina. I make $68,000 a year. I drive a 2019 Nissan Altima with a crack in the sun visor I keep meaning to tape up. I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment off I-40, where you can hear the freeway through the walls at night. Nothing fancy, nothing flashy. I'm the guy who reads the fine print at work and forgets to read it at home. I met Danica Hart 6 years before that dinner, at a birthday party for a mutual friend. She was in pre-law, second year, and she talked about court procedure the way other people talked about sports. I was done for inside 10 minutes. We dated a year. I proposed in my kitchen over takeout noodles because I thought grand gestures were for people who had something to prove. She laughed and said yes, and we built something small and steady and real. At least I thought it was real. By her third year of law school, I had spent $63,000 of my own money on her tuition, rent, groceries, bar prep, 2 laptops, and every bill in between. I thought I was building our future. I didn't know I was building her exit. And I definitely didn't know about the form she asked me to sign a month before graduation. The signs were there. I can say that now. At the time, I explained every single one away. Her phone, always face down. Every surface, dinner table, kitchen counter, nightstand. I noticed it once and said, "Your phone's face down again." She picked it up, turned the screen toward me, blank, and set it back down. "Happy?" I laughed it off. The study groups. 3 years of law school, and not one classmate ever came to our apartment. Not once. I brought it up in year 2. "How come nobody ever comes here?" She was packing her bag for the library. Didn't look up. "Law students don't socialize, Adrian. We survive." Around month 18, she opened a separate bank account. I found the statement on the counter. I held it up when she walked in. "What's this?" She dropped her keys on the hook. "It's my personal account. So I don't feel guilty buying coffee." I said okay. I actually said okay. Then there was the mentor. Evelyn Sloan. Managing partner at a firm downtown. Danica mentioned her in passing in second year. She's taking an interest in my development. The texts from Evelyn came after 10 at night sometimes. I saw the name light up once while Danica was in the shower. I didn't touch the phone, I walked away. And a month before graduation, Danica handed me a form and said it was for school administration. "Just sign the bottom," she said. "It's a financial aid thing." I signed. I didn't read a single word, and that signature was the beginning of everything I didn't understand yet. Back to the restaurant. I'm sitting there with the papers in my hands and she's watching me the way you watch a document print, waiting for it to finish so you can move on. I set the third page down. I said, "There's a restraining order application here." "Yes." "Just that." "Yes." "You filed for a restraining order. It's an application. Against me." She looked at her water glass. "It's a precaution." I leaned forward. "A precaution." "Adrian, please keep your voice down." "I'm not." I stopped. I looked around. Nobody was watching us. I was not raising my voice. She knew I wasn't raising my voice. She wanted me to believe I was. I sat back. Breathed. "You told a court that you're afraid of me." She smoothed the napkin on her lap. "I told a court the facts as I understand them." "What facts?" "What facts, Danica?" "The filing speaks for itself." I stared at her. 6 years. 6 years of dinners and laundry and driving her to campus at 7 in the morning and holding her while she cried over property law. And she was sitting across from me talking like a deposition. Then I noticed something I had missed completely. There was a second envelope on the table. Smaller. Sitting beside the breadbasket like it had always been there. It had my employer's name on it, the bank's HR department, and her handwriting on the front. I picked up the second envelope. She watched me pick it up. She did not move to stop me. That told me she wanted me to see it. This was not an accident. I said, "What is this?" She said, "That depends on you." "What does that mean?" "It means the next few days are going to define how this goes." I set it down. My hand was steady, which surprised me. "You brought a letter to my employer's HR department to a dinner celebrating your law school graduation." She tilted her head slightly. "I brought it in case the conversation went a certain direction." "What direction?" "Any direction where you made this ugly." I laughed. Not a funny laugh. The kind that comes out when your brain can't find words fast enough. "I've been paying your bills for 3 years, Danica." "I know. I paid for the classes that taught you how to do this to me." A pause. She looked at me with something I couldn't name. Not guilt. Almost like acknowledgement. "I know," she said again. And she meant it differently the second time. I stood up. I put my card on the table, because 6 years of being the one who handles things doesn't die in one dinner. The server ran the card. I signed the receipt. I walked out into the Raleigh summer. Thick, heavy air, the kind that hits you in the face when you step out of cold restaurants. And I stood on the sidewalk listening to the freeway hiss from 4 blocks away and wondered how long this had actually been in the works. The morning after the restaurant, I had 17 missed notifications before I even got off the couch. First thing I saw was the bank app. Joint checking, $412. Yesterday, it had been just over $9,000. I sat up. I opened the app again. 412. I called the number on the back of my debit card. Automated system. I pressed 0 3 times until I got a person. A woman answered. Very professional. "I'm looking at my joint checking account," I said. "There's been a withdrawal I didn't authorize." She typed for a moment. "I'm seeing an authorized transfer from a listed account holder." "She's listed, but I didn't." "Sir, any listed account holder can initiate a transfer." I hung up. I went to the bedroom to get my keys. The bedroom door was locked. From the outside, my stuff was on the couch. She had left a locksmith receipt on the coffee table with no note. Just the receipt. Like a receipt was explanation enough. I called the leasing office. The woman who answered was apologetic in a rehearsed way. "Miss Hart came in 2 weeks ago to update the account access structure." 2 weeks ago. While I was at work. While I was buying her graduation flowers. By noon I was served in the parking lot outside my office. The process server said my name like a question. "Adrian Park?" I said yes. He handed me the envelope and walked away. 2 of my coworkers were right there. One of them looked away fast. That was the moment it stopped feeling like a marriage ending. That was the moment it started feeling like something I'd been set up for. I found the form that night, I wasn't even looking for it specifically. I needed my passport for something. Pulled the wrong folder from the filing cabinet in the second bedroom, and there it was. The paper I had signed a month before graduation. The one she told me was for school administration. I stood there and read the title at the top. Post-nuptial agreement. I read it again. Slower. Post-nuptial agreement. I sat down on the floor right there between the cabinet and the wall, and I read every page. It divided assets. It protected Danica's future earnings from any claim I might make in a divorce. It had been prepared by a law firm. The letterhead at the top said, Sloan and Associates. She had given me this document while I was eating leftover rice. She had told me it was a school form. She had handed me a pen. I had signed without reading because I trusted her. Because I had always trusted her. I flipped to the witness line at the bottom. The name there stopped me completely. Monique Ellis. My coworker. My friend. The person I had been calling every single day since the restaurant. The person I had been crying to. I sat there on that floor for a long time. And then I picked up my phone and called Monique. The phone rang twice, and she answered. And I said just one thing. I said, tell me you didn't sign this. The silence on the other end lasted maybe 4 seconds, but I counted every one of them. Then Monique said, Adrian, you need to sit down. I said, I'm on the floor. Another pause. I heard her exhale. Okay, she said. Okay. I need you to listen to all of it before you say anything. Talk. 6 weeks before graduation, Danica called me. She told me you were going through something, that you'd been, her word, volatile, that she was scared. Volatile. I said the word like it was in a foreign language. I know how it sounds now. But she was convincing, Adrian. She cried. She said she just needed a witness for a protective document. She said you wouldn't even know about it. She covered the content. She had another sheet of paper over the text. I only saw the witness line. I pressed the back of my head against the filing cabinet. The metal was cold. So you didn't know what you were signing. I swear to you I did not. I would never. I need to think. Adrian, I said I need to think. I hung up. I don't know if she was telling the truth. I still don't. But here's what I do know. That document was drafted by Evelyn Sloan's firm. And signed, while Danica was clerking there. And witnessed by someone who was also my closest friend at work. Whether Monique was manipulated or complicit, that web was not built in a day. And I needed someone in my corner who understood how to take it apart. I needed a lawyer. And I needed one before anything else moved. I found Patricia Voss through a legal aid referral. 1-page list, 3 names. I called all 3. She called back first. We met in a conference room that smelled like old coffee and printer paper. She had a yellow legal pad and a pen she clicked twice before she started. She said, tell me everything, don't edit. So I did. When I finished, she looked at her notes for a moment without speaking. Then she said, the post-nuptial agreement has problems. What kind of problems? You signed under a misrepresentation of what the document was. That's fraud in the inducement. It's not a guaranteed win, but it's a real argument. And Monique's signature? Patricia tapped the pen against the pad. If she signed under a false description of the document, the witnessing process was potentially improper. If the signature was added separately, after the fact, that's a different issue entirely. Is there a way to know? There are document examiners who look at pen pressure, ink distribution. It takes time. Then she said the thing that made my stomach drop. The judge assigned to your case. She set her pen down. There's a pattern in the public record. Rulings in cases connected to Sloan and Associates. It's statistically unusual. Can we change the judge? We can't fix it. But we can document it. And documentation is exactly what you're going to spend the next 2 years doing. She looked at me directly. Stop reacting. Start recording. Every text, Every email, every receipt, every conversation you can note down. Build a folder and treat it like your life depends on it. I went home to a borrowed couch that night, and I started the folder. What I didn't know yet was that folder was going to reveal something much bigger than a divorce. The first year wasn't clean. People tell these stories like rebuilding is a straight line going up. Mine had no line. First 2 months I was couch surfing. I slept in 2 different living rooms and ate gas station sandwiches 4 nights a week. I picked up a second job, overnight commercial cleaning, offices, and small businesses around Raleigh. I worked compliance at the bank by day and mopped floors by night and told myself it was temporary. It mostly was. But it took a long time to feel that way. The motions kept coming. 3 additional filings in the first 60 days, each one hitting before I'd recovered from the last. My credit score dropped because of a flag on the car account that nobody had properly cleared. A demand letter showed up at my office connected to a credit card I had never applied for. Patricia kept working. I kept paying her in installments. One night I stopped at a small bar on Hillsborough Street after my cleaning shift. I wasn't drinking much. I just needed somewhere to sit that wasn't a parking lot. The bartender was a guy named Jasper Reed, early 30s. Calm in the way that people are calm when they've been through something and came out the other side. He set a glass of water in front of me without me asking. I said, "Thanks." He said, "You look like you're carrying something." I said, "Something like that." He nodded and went back to wiping down the bar. He didn't ask what it was. That was the first time in months someone had given me space instead of taking something. And I started coming back. Month 14, the document examiner's report came back. I was in Patricia's office when she read it out loud. She said the examiner found inconsistencies in pen pressure and ink distribution between the body of the document and the witness signature line. I said, "What does that mean?" "It means the witness line may have been signed in a separate session from the rest of the document. The signatures weren't made at the same time." I sat back. So she added Monique's signature later. The examiner can't confirm that definitively, but it gives us grounds to challenge the validity of the witnessing process, which means we can challenge the agreement itself. "File it," I said. She filed the motion on a Wednesday. By Thursday afternoon, Danica's team had filed a counter motion expanding the asset claims and adding something new. Defamation. Based on something I had said in a group chat 7 months earlier, that I believed my wife had planned the divorce before she finished law school. That one sentence was now a legal allegation. I stared at the paper. "Can they do that?" Patricia said. "They just did. It's designed to drain your time and money responding to it." She looked at me. "What did I tell you about reacting?" "Stop reacting. Start recording." "Good." She clicked her pen. "Now, the discovery process is going to open up their financial records to us. And I want you to know, I've been looking at some of the account structures in the filings. Something doesn't line up." She paused. "Have you ever guaranteed a loan, Adrian?" I said no. She wrote something on her legal pad and didn't look up. And that question sat in my chest, the whole drive home. The message came from a woman I didn't know, through a professional networking site, 14 months after the restaurant. I almost deleted it. The message said, "My name is Britt Navarro. I'm a former paralegal at Sloan & Associates. I left over ethical concerns. I've seen your name in internal communications related to a financial matter I don't believe you're aware of. I can't say more here, but I wanted you to know." I forwarded it to Patricia in under a minute. She sent one line back, "Call me." I called her. She said, "Do not respond to this person until I've vetted the contact. If she's real and she's willing to talk, this could matter." Britt Navarro was real. We got on a call with her 3 days later. She spoke carefully, like someone who had rehearsed what she was going to say and what she wasn't. "I processed communications," she said, "related to a loan guarantee. The name on the guarantee documentation was Adrian Park." I felt something cold move through me. I never guaranteed any loan. "I know," she said. "That's why I reached out." Patricia asked her specifically about the timeline. Britt said the documentation was processed during a period when Danica was clerking at the firm. Can you provide anything in writing? Patricia asked. A pause. I kept copies of certain documents when I left. I kept them because I was afraid of what I'd seen. I never thought I'd use them. But, another pause. Yes, I can. And that is when a divorce case became something else entirely. The forensic accountant Patricia brought in found the trail inside 3 weeks. He laid it out in her conference room on a Tuesday morning with printed spreadsheets and highlighted rows. He talked fast and precise, and I sat there trying to keep up. He said, a business loan, $240,000, private lender, 18 months before the divorce filing. He pointed to a row. The guarantee was signed using your name, your social security number, and documentation referencing your employment at the bank. I said I never applied for that loan. No, he said. The application was submitted digitally. The identity information matches you exactly. Patricia said, show him the routing. He flipped to the next page. The loan proceeds moved through 2 accounts. The first is a business holding structure connected to Sloan and Associates. The second is, he pointed, a personal account opened during your marriage. In your wife's name. I stared at the highlighted line. So they used my identity to take out a loan that funded something connected to Evelyn Sloan's firm. That's what the trail shows, he said. And the divorce, I started. Patricia finished it. The timing of the divorce, the restraining order to discredit you, the post-nuptial agreement to complicate your legal standing, the HR letter to keep you occupied and scared, all of it kept you focused on the marriage while the money moved. I looked at the spreadsheet for a long time, and then my phone buzzed. It was a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't listen to the voicemail. But I did. And her voice came through the speaker. Hi. It's Danica Hart. I need you, tonight. I played the voicemail 3 times in the parking garage, just sitting in the Altima with the engine off. Hi, it's Danica Hart. I need you, tonight. Her voice was different. Not the restaurant voice, not the deposition voice, something underneath that, something cracked. I called Patricia. She picked up immediately. What's wrong? I just got a voicemail from Danica. Silence. Then, send it to me right now. I did. She called back in 4 minutes. The number's registered to a prepaid phone, not her name. She disguised the call. Possibly. Or someone told her to. Patricia's voice went flat and careful. Adrian, I want you to think about something. She knows the forensic work is in progress. She knows Britt came forward. She's either panicking on her own, or someone coached her to reach out. Why would someone coach her? Because if they can get you talking, on a recording, saying anything about the loan, about what you know, they can use it. So the voicemail's a trap. I don't know. But I want you to call back on a recorded line, and I want you to say as little as possible. Let her talk. I called the number from a line Patricia set up. It rang once. She picked up immediately. Adrian. Yeah. I need to see you. What for? Pause. Things have gotten complicated. I waited. There are documents, she said. If they become public, I lose everything. Another pause. There might be a way for both of us to come out of this better. I said, I'll think about it. Then I said, do you remember what you said to me at the restaurant? You told me not to make a scene. Long silence. Adrian, I didn't make one, and I ended the call. Jasper called at 7 the next morning. He'd never called me before that time. I picked up and said, hey. He said, I need to tell you something. I should have told you sooner. What is it? 3 weeks ago, a guy came into the bar, asked for me by name. Said he was looking into some things and thought I might be able to help. I sat up straighter. What kind of things? He asked about you. Your routines. Whether you'd been talking about your case with anyone. Whether you had documents somewhere. I said, "Did you recognize him?" "No, but he left a card." I heard Jasper moving. "I'm sending you a picture of it right now." The photo came through. A business card. A consulting firm. I forwarded it to Patricia. She called back in 20 minutes, faster than I expected. "This firm appears in internal communications from Sloan and Associates," she said. "They're a litigation support contractor. They run background on opposing parties in active cases. They were watching me through my friends. They were trying to find out how much you knew and who you'd told, which means they were scared." I sat with that for a second. Then I asked, "Can we use this?" The fact that they approached your personal contacts while a case was active? Yes. Combined with the internal communications Britt preserved? Yes. Because in those communications, Adrian, your name appears as a potential suspect in the loan fraud. Not a victim. A suspect. My hand tightened on the phone. They built a frame around me. They built a frame around you, and Jasper Reed just handed us the proof it was constructed. The hearing was on a Tuesday in October. I fed quarters into a broken parking meter outside the courthouse for 3 minutes before giving up. The morning was cold and gray in that specific Raleigh way. Not quite winter, but done pretending to be fall. I was in a suit I'd pressed myself the night before. I had the folder under my arm. 411 individual items. 2 years. Patricia was already inside at the table when I walked in. She looked up and said, "How are you?" I said, "Ready." She nodded. "Good, because I want you to do one thing for me today." "What?" "Don't look at her. Not when she walks in. Not when she speaks. Only look at me, the judge, and the documents. Let her read your face and find nothing." I said I could do that. Danica walked in 8 minutes later with her attorney. I looked at the table. I heard her sit down across the room. Patricia opened the folder and began organizing the submissions. The new judge, not the one from before, a different assignment after Patricia's filing, entered and called the room to order. The first document submitted was the forensic accountant's report. The judge read it silently. The room was very quiet. Then she looked up. She looked at Danica's attorney first. Then, and I watched this from my peripheral vision, she turned directly to Danica. "Counselor," she said, quiet and even, "is this your work product?" And for the first time in 2 years, I heard Danica Hart open her mouth and say absolutely nothing. The hearing lasted 4 hours. I won't walk you through every exchange, because the truth is that most of it was procedural. Documents submitted, attorneys speaking, the judge asking questions in a tone that got quieter and more pointed as the morning went on. The quiet was worse for them than volume ever could have been. The post-nuptial agreement was invalidated. Fraudulent misrepresentation at the time of signing. The forensic accountant's report was entered into the record. The loan fraud was formally referred to financial crimes investigators and the state bar. Both names, Danica Hart and Evelyn Sloan, were in the referral. Evelyn's attorney, who had been sitting in the back of the room the entire morning, stood up at that point and made a brief statement. Patricia leaned close and said quietly, "She's throwing your wife under the bus. She's separating from her." I watched Danica turn slightly toward the back of the room. She looked at Evelyn's attorney the way you look at someone who just pulled a chair out from under you. And I think that was the moment she understood that she had never been the partner. She had been the shield, something nobody had told her until it was too late to matter. The defamation claim was dismissed. The HR letter was flagged for counterclaim. And Patricia submitted one final document, a quiet one, almost administrative, that essentially closed every financial door that had been left open. Then it was over. And we walked out into the cold air and Patricia said, "You kept the receipts." I said, "You told me to." She almost smiled. I did. She caught up to me in the parking lot. I heard her heels on the concrete and I kept walking. Adrian, I stopped. Not because I wanted to. Because something in me had practiced this moment and knew that running was not how I wanted to end it. I turned around. She was standing about 6 feet back. No folder. No envelope. Just Danica, in a coat I didn't recognize, looking smaller than she ever had inside a courtroom. She said, "Tell them you forgave me." I looked at her. Really looked. The precision was gone. The control was gone. What was left was just a person who had built a very complicated plan and watched it come apart in front of a judge. "Tell who?" I said. "The investigators. The bar. Whoever is going to—" She stopped. "If you say you forgave me, they'll soften it." I said, "I don't have anything to say to anyone, Danica. Everything that needed to be said is already in the folder." "Adrian, you handed me a pen in our kitchen and told me to sign something." "And I did. Because I trusted you." She opened her mouth. I held up a hand. "I'm not angry. I want you to know that. I went through angry. I'm past it." Then, "But forgiveness isn't a legal document. It doesn't undo the record." I put my hands in my pockets. "I hope it works out okay for you. I mean that." And then I walked to the Altima with the sun-faded hood and the cracked sun visor, and I drove home alone for the first time in 2 years, feeling like I actually owned the car. I want to tell you where I ended up, not because the ending is perfect, it isn't, but because you deserve to know what all of it actually cost and what it actually bought. I'm still in Raleigh, still at the bank, same compliance work, though I got a small promotion 8 months ago that brought me to $74,000. I quit the overnight cleaning job the month after the hearing. I moved into a 1-bedroom in a building closer to downtown, with a window that faces a parking structure, which is less poetic than it sounds, but the morning light is actually good. I put a plant on the windowsill. I still don't know what kind it is. It's alive. Jasper and I still meet at the bar sometimes. He says I look like a different person. I tell him I feel like the same one, just with better documentation habits. Patricia sent me a card after the case closed, handwritten. It said, "You kept your head down and your receipts up. That's how this works." I've read it more than once. The loan fraud investigation is still ongoing. I can't say more about that. What I can say is that my name is no longer in those documents as a suspect. Monique and I don't talk much anymore. I don't think she meant to hurt me. I also don't think she told me everything she knew. Both things can be true. And here is the part one keep coming back to. Danica handed me a pen and told me it was nothing. And I signed. Because I loved her. Because I trusted her. Because it had never once occurred to me that the person building a life next to me was actually building an exit. So tell me, if someone you trusted completely handed you a document and smiled and said, "Sign here," would you read it first? Here is the last thing I want to say. Not a lesson. Not a speech, just the truth. I was not a perfect husband. I worked a lot. I was not always present. I could go 3 days without asking her how she was really doing. I know that. But I was loyal. Completely, entirely loyal. And I spent 2 years learning that loyalty alone doesn't protect you. Receipts do. Documentation does. Paying attention to what people do instead of what they say, that does. Danica was brilliant. Genuinely. She built a legal strategy around her own marriage while she was still in law school. She leveraged a mentor, a witness, a post-nuptial agreement, a restraining order application, an HR letter, and a fraudulent loan into one coordinated operation. And it almost worked. It almost worked because I was the kind of person who signs things on trust and goes back to eating his rice. What stopped it wasn't anger. It wasn't revenge. It was a folder. 411 items. 2 years of keeping every text, every email, every bank statement, every voicemail, every business card a stranger left at a bar. Jasper said once, "You can't out-argue someone's narrative. You can only outlast it." He was right. I outlasted it. And I walked out of that courthouse with exactly what was fair. Nothing more, nothing less. And I drove home in my cracked visor Altima, and I sat by the window and looked at the plant I still can't name. And I thought about how strange it is that the most powerful thing I did in 2 years of fighting was the most boring thing imaginable. I read the paperwork. If your spouse did this to you, exposed everything, and burned it down on the way out, would you fight it publicly or go quiet and let the receipts do the talking?